we are in Acts chapter 7, and previously we were introduced to Stephen. Now, Stephen was accused of saying things that he hadn't said, like speaking against Moses and speaking against the law, and then he was brought in front of the Sanhedrin. And then the high priest in chapter 7, verse 1, asks him, "Are these charges true?" And then Stephen gives a very lengthy account of the history of God's chosen people, speaking from Abraham to Moses to various priests and leaders and kings and all the way to Jesus. And he highlights this point. He says, "You have always rejected God's prophets and God's leaders, and then you rejected the righteous one," speaking of Jesus, which resulted in his murder at the cross, in his crucifixion. And you can imagine how furious the Sanhedrin was. But Stephen, being filled with the Holy Spirit, said, "Look, I see the glory of God, and I see Jesus seated at the right hand of the Father. And look, I see the heavens open, and I see Jesus standing at the right hand of God." And because they were so upset about what he said, they covered their ears, they dragged him out, and they stoned him. But this is what Stephen said when he was being stoned. He said, "Lord, do not hold this sin against them." And isn't this the words that Jesus said at the cross when he said, "Father, forgive them, for they know not what they do"? And these were Stephen's words as he was dying, and Stephen was martyred for his faith. Friends, let us take a page out of Stephen's book, where Stephen was so filled with the Holy Spirit that he had the boldness to preach the word, and he had the boldness to persevere even in persecution. And in our lives, let us be filled with the Holy Spirit, that we too would have the boldness to go out there and share the good news of Jesus with our friends, our families, our community, our workplace. And let us have the boldness of the Holy Spirit to persevere even in times of trials, knowing that the Lord is always with us. Be blessed.